Hello everybody and welcome back to the Retro Recall. I hope you're doing awesome. Today we have 3 more systems from eWaste. That's right, eWaste, the place where all these towers and computers or electronics are thrown to get taken apart, dissected, and recycled, hopefully. And, being able to rescue these and explore them and restore them is just an amazing, fun time. So here we are. We have 3 more to go over today individually and find out exactly what is inside them, what works, what doesn't, can we get them to post at the very least? I think that's be a fun time for the scope of this particular video. This particular case system I'm very interested in. I have not seen one of these before, and so we're definitely going to focus in on that just to see. So let's get right to it. Okay, and here we are with system number 1 on the bench. This is looks like a custom built system with looks like a CD burner of some sort, CD rewritable disk drive, and ASUS or ASUS, depending on how you pronounce it, 52-speed CD-ROM drive. Floppy drive, pretty standard, and it says V8 system on the front. So apparently there's a gasoline motor inside of this, but yeah, let's keep on looking at the case to find out what else is inside. So we just have a regular side of our case, ventilation, what it looks like on there, pretty scuffed up where it was thrown into a pile of mess, and a couple bugs, nothing so bad. So right off the get-go, we see that we do not have a power supply in this particular case. So if we go to test the system, we're definitely going to have to take a known working power supply. If you've seen my previous videos, you know I didn't necessarily test the power supplies before, and we ran into some difficulty. So this particular motherboard from IC, I don't know how it's mounted. I'm a little nervous about this because if you look, the actual I/O of the motherboard is inset from the shield itself. So I'm not sure if the motherboard is offset or this is just not the right fit for this particular board, but we'll have to take a look at that when we dig it, open it up. So we have our PS2 ports. We have what looks like 2 USB ports, 2 serial, 1 parallel, sound card, and game port in here. So again, not knowing what is in the system for components, and as well as looks like just a regular VGA card. There's something written on here. Looks like a sticker. I'm just going to take it out here. Oh, well, I ripped it out. It just says PCI video card. So that's that was attached on there. So we'll have to look at that as well. So I am seeing a couple screws, or just 1 screw on the side we need to open, and of course on the motherboard side we only have the one up top. So I'm gonna grab my screwdriver here, and we'll get that removed while we're here now. And I just did a cleanup of the bench, so things are need to be accessible. Here we are. Okay, so I'm gonna move the light around here so we have a better view, and I'm gonna go ahead and remove that 1 screw from the case, and we'll take a look inside to see what's inside this computer. And I just love exploring these systems, specifically the eWaste systems, because, in the mind of whoever had these systems were junk, garbage, they were tossed, and you never know what you're going to get inside these as well. All right, so let's go ahead and open this up, and here we are. That's not too bad of a looking motherboard that I'm seeing here. Definitely a much larger size motherboard, not a baby ATX or micro ATX by any means. I am seeing definitely a motherboard that has shifted. So the PCI video card that's here has definitely been shifted. Let's go like this with the light so you guys can see inside there a little better. But yeah, you can definitely tell that the motherboard itself is not mounted correctly. We have 1 screw on the bottom, but the 2 screws up top that would screw into the offsets there off where they should be. Okay, I'm going to, I guess the first thing I'm going to do is just unscrew this video card because there's definitely some strain on that. from the fact that the motherboard has shifted. So I'm just gonna get in there a little better for everybody to take a look here. So here we are. Let's get in there. I'm gonna remove that screw, and we'll pop that out just until we get this motherboard situated. So this particular video card, though, it looks like it is a Trident. This says Trident TGUI 9440. The model number VC910M is the video card. So I'm not exactly sure what card this is. It's just dated on the chipset 1995 or sorry 94. So definitely an older video card that's in the system. And so looking at the actual motherboard itself, it looks like we have 3 populated sticks of memory there. Now it's interesting. It looks like there's almost like a riser board. I'm going to get in here like a riser board with capacitors on it that's coming off of the motherboard. So I'm not familiar with that. I'll be honest with you. I've never seen that myself, but definitely interesting there for sure. Okay, so we have 3 sticks of memory. It looks like SD RAM based on what I'm seeing here. I am not going to remove the RAM. Every time I remove this memory, I always have an issue here. And the motherboard itself, and I'm only saying that because I want to do a test of this to see if we're able to get this board up and running. So, I mean, I do see the front leads are removed from the actual case itself. So it'll be good to get that, get those connected. And I mean, it has an ASUS chipset that I'm seeing here, which is on the board. So I'm just seeing if it's an ASUS board. It is an ASUS board. There we go. It is an spider right there too. That's fun. A7V133-C motherboard. So I'm not familiar with that particular motherboard myself. But we're going to find out when we go to plug it in and turn it on and see if we can get it going. I'm looking at the capacitors here. I'm not seeing any issues that I can see offhand. Again, I'm not familiar with, I said this earlier, is that the actual, and there's a board, or it looks like a board that's literally like a riser board almost coming off of the motherboard. I'm not familiar with that. I've never seen that. Generally, anything that I've seen has been like on the board itself. So definitely interesting. Now, I don't like how this is. So there we go. I have it moved in, and let's see if that works for what we're trying to do here. Yeah, so there's definitely some shifting going on here, but I think we're getting it now. So all I'm doing is pushing on the back of the board here to line it up with the holes on the actual motherboard itself, the mounting brackets, or mounting holes. So I'm just going in and I'm just going to loosen up some of these screws just so there's some movement available. And if you don't have these properly mounted, definitely some grounding can occur, and we don't want that, obviously. So, all right, I'm going to get a screw there and get that put in, and we should be good to go there. This was definitely thrown away and never wanted to be looked at again. There's some plastic standoffs in here on the back side of the board, but in some key components, there's definitely some mounting issues, and I don't want any chance of grounding or arcing or anything like that that'll cause me problems while I turn this on. So I'm just trying to locate some screws here to see if we can get this screwed in here and mounted properly. There we are. So we have all of our screws properly in there now. The board is definitely much more secure in that case, and I'm much more confident to put the video card in. And it looks like there were other things that were populating this case, but again, it did come with the Trident card, so we're going to use that just for testing. And again, I mean, I have a bunch of different ones I could use, but I'm using this just because we have it, and it's already part of the system. And, you know, if we do a different video with this system, we'll make sure that we look at what options we have. Okay, so we're back, and I've gone ahead and connected all of the front panel IOs, at least what I think they are based on the marking on the silk screen on the board. I just realized that through all the going through the board and and trying to get it all mounted back properly. Because again, I don't want to test this system. I didn't do a lot of going over the rest of the components in the case, so I definitely want to do that now. So again, I mentioned that we had the 2 optical drives, which we have right there, which were, of course, one CD burner, rewritable, and then we have a CD-ROM drive as well. We don't have a hard drive in the system. Looks like it's been removed. On top of that, we don't have any cables either. We don't have the floppy IDEs or the hard drive IDEs either. And we also do have a floppy drive installed, which is great. And we have our PC speaker. This particular board is sporting the 1 AGP slot, and then we have our 5 PCI. And at the very bottom here, we have our AMR slot as well. But yeah, it's really cool to see that there's actually a fan on the chipset on this board. So it'll be interesting to see what this is when we plug it in. So for testing, what I'm going to do is I do have an ATX power supply I'm going to put on the bench here. I'm going to throw the keyboard, mouse, and monitor, and we'll be right back and see if we can get the system posting. And we're back with our setup. So we have the case all connected here with our working ATX power supply, and we have our trusty HP monitor all set up here, and we have the power cord. So I'm going to go ahead and just plug in the power supply to see if anything happens to the board. And nothing just yet. Everything's looking good. I'm not seeing any smoke or any issues there. Okay, let's hit the infamous power button and see what happens to the system. Nothing. Okay, it's possible that I have the power not connected there. So let me just take a look at the headers again to see what if that's one of the problems I'm having here. Okay, so I definitely have the wires reversed there based on what I could see. So I've gone ahead and swapped everything around. Let's hit the power button and see if it fires up. We have power. I'm not getting any posts and no post beeps. Okay, so I'm not getting any beeps when the system is turning on here, and I'm convinced I want to get this system to post. So what I'm going to do is take the RAM out of the board here and just get that. We'll switch down just to one bank or one stick of memory, just because I want to see if that is what's causing our difficulty or not in the system. And some of that RAM is in there pretty good. It says 120 megabytes of PC100, so that's the memory that's in there. And we'll just narrow it down to 1 just to see if that makes a difference. I'm also going to remove the video card and put some deoxit on there, some contact cleaner, and just see if that's making any sort of difference. I'm not getting any post beeps from the speaker, so I'm not sure if there's an issue with the speaker or not, or the way, it could be an issue with the header. Again, this video is not, the scope of the video today is not to do a bunch of troubleshooting, but I want to definitely see if this is something that we can get going fairly quickly through this process. And let's see if that makes any sort of difference for our system to boot up. Yeah, so nothing on screen, no response on the keyboard. Now, when I'm seeing this, it could also be a grounding issue. Generally, when the system is just firing up like that, either the fans don't work at all, or sometimes this is what happens. And yeah, I'm just going to wiggle that in there a little bit just to see. Maybe I'm going to try a different slot to see if I can get it. Probably the original slot it was in. That's the spot it was in the video card originally, or on the motherboard. And I didn't touch that memory module. I may end up just troubleshooting that in a minute, but let's see if that video card movement makes a difference. Nothing on screen. Nothing there. Just going to pop out the last stick of memory here. And we'll pop in one of the other sticks that we have. See if that makes any difference for us. Goes in there fairly nicely now. It's amazing what that contact cleaner will do. Okay, let's fire it up and see if it comes back. Nothing. All right, my next troubleshooting mine goes to that there's an issue with the possibly grounding on the board. Yeah, I mean, this is something that's going to turn into a project for us. We're going to have to see the fact that we have power on the board and things are spinning up gives me hope that the board is definitely something that we can resurrect and get going. And for the scope of today's video, our goal is just to see if these fire up our post to give us an idea of a project to work on. And, you know, to that end, what I want to do is where we're not going to pursue this any further. But that said, I want to see what is inside here for a CPU. Okay, I'll just use the trusted screwdriver there to get that out. And we have an AMD CPU. That's a good sign, but what are we looking at? So socket 462. So I believe that's socket A, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sure if I'm wrong, I'll be told in the comments. There's oh my goodness, that paste is just, it's literally sticky. Little to none on this either. So I'm going to just see if I can get that cleaned up real quickly so we can identify what this CPU is. I'm just going to use some isopropyl alcohol, give it a little bit of a spray there. Yeah, so it looks like we have, the camera's not going to pick that up very well. Yeah, so we have an AMD Athlon from 1999 is what the date code says on the actual die. And it is saying the model is A0700. So I imagine this is an AMD Athlon 700. AMT3B is the model. So that's interesting. We don't have one of these in our collection so far. So we have an AMD Athlon 700. Which I believe, again, is socket A in this system. And yeah, very exciting to have this as part of our collection. So I'm just going to put this back in here. We had, I think, 3 sticks of 128 megs of RAM that were in here. So, I mean, this has lots of potential to actually get going, I would think. So I definitely am motivated to take this board out of this system and do some further testing and see if we can get this going. But for today, we're going to move on to system number 2. Okay, and we're back with the bench all cleared off with system number 2. And this one fascinates me the most. I just love the look of this case being a desktop form factor. And the model, or the make of the manufacturer, I should say, of the case is Silverstone, where we have on the sticker in the front, it says AMD Athlon 64 is the processor that it says this in this. And then we have Zalman cooling systems, the quiet cooling solution. So that's what we have there. And we have the power button, some LED indicators, and what looks like a reset that you must have to use a pin or something to activate. And what's really cool is the front. I mean, this is brushed metal. This whole case is just brushed metal. So in the front, and if that's an indication, we don't have anything in this case. There's no components. This is just literally an empty shell case that was thrown into e-waste. And I can't wait to, the possibilities are endless with this. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So we have a couple of front audio ports, what looks like a Firewire port, and we have our 2 USB ports in the front. And also what looks like it would be a floppy drive base, 3.5-inch base here. And again, not knowing what I would put in there, but definitely have that. And they just kind of pop in there and it just completely close it off. And on this side, let's open that up. And on this side, we have our 5.25-inch base here, obviously for optical drives or what have you. So that's really neat to see. And let's flop it around on the other side here. And again, this enclosure is all reflective, this entire case. And I can only imagine how well this will clean up. We also have some side ventilation on this case, which is really helpful for depending on what kind of build you did with this. And here we are. So on the other side here, we have not 1, but 2 cooling fans in the back here on the case. And that would be above and beyond what the power supply would offer, of course. We have what our I/O shield would be. So this is an ATX style case. I mean, obviously with the front panel with the power button, but also this. And I mean, this looks like it's been through some modification. I'm not sure if a previous user had drilled this out and bent this back to accommodate a second fan, but it's there. I mean, there's some rust spots along here, but this has definitely been modified in some form to accept this. Now, again, I can look up this case on the internet to see if this was factory, but my gut feeling is no, based on what I'm seeing here. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, so 7 expansion possibilities on this. Even the feet have the brushed metal on them, which I think is just absolutely cool. And again, all of this coming from, thrown out, but I mean, I'm thinking, those boards we went over in our last video, they would definitely be a good candidate for this tower, for this desktop form factor. What would we have? But anyway, we'll continue on with this. So we have the thumb turn screw, which I just absolutely love those. So much easier to do without tools. And we'll take off the case. And here we are. So we have our internals of the case. So we have a random fan that's down here. And again, just no doubt to expel. Yeah, there we are. We have a spot on the bottom here where the exhaust could be to expel additional cooling. So we have a couple fans here, and we have that fan on top of the other fans. So definitely promotes adequate cooling, at least ideally. And we have some cables here with this particular case. So we have what looks like our firewire connector there that would go into the board or into an input. And then we have our other connectors as well here, other headers that would be plugging into the front panel, and then our standard ones that you would normally see. So we'd have to trace all these back to whatever motherboard it is. I mean, some of them are labeled there based on where it's going to, but you'd have to go and look because again, it just shows the voltages that are written on there, but not actually what they would be for. So you just have to follow them back into the front of the case. Not hard to find out where they'd be plugged into. And so, yeah, this is a very unique case. I just love the look of it. I love that this fell into my hands. And other than the unwelcome, looks like spider's nest in there and a few other things, I'm sure that we can get this going pretty well. So what I was saying earlier is, we went through all those motherboards. I mean, we have the Super Socket 7. We have, the Pentium 3 1000 board. Do we want to convert this into the system, into one of those, or do we want to use an Athlon board? Let me know down in the comments what you would like to see a build of. So I'd like to, ideally scrub this completely out and take one of those motherboards and pop it right in here with an ATX power supply that we know is working and get this case up and running. It would just be really cool to see. Now, it would be even more cool is there an ability to get a brushed metal sort of front optical drive. Now I do have I have a couple of gray ones or silver ones, but not metal, of course. But yeah, it'd be cool to see what we can do with this case. Well, enough about this one. Even though I want to spend the whole video on this, let's jump on to system number 3. And here we are back with system number 3. And yeah, it's a pretty good looking case as well. It looks very, very beefy in the front with the front plastics there and everything like that. So let's go over it. So we don't have any optical drive in this particular system. We do have a very yellowed 3.5-inch floppy drive. I have no idea if that's connected or what's in that or what have you. But we have that, and we have our multimedia computer system. So at least we know it's multimedia. So we have our LEDs for our power and our hard drive. It says powered by ASUS in the front, and then we have our AMD Sempron CPU sticker. So I don't know if that's an indication of what's inside the system or not, but we have that. We have 2 front USB and our 2 audio on the front there as well. Let's turn this around. So we just have our standard side panel. So nothing fancy there. And on the back, of the system, where you have a big gaping hole where a power supply would go. So we don't have that with us at the moment, but we do have an ATX power supply, which we know works, which is good. And then we have our two PS2 ports. We have built-on DVI, which is something I have not seen in a long, long time on a motherboard. So nice to see. And we have our VGA. We have 4 USB ports, 1 built-in Ethernet, our printer port, of course, our LPT port, and then we have our built-on audio as well. Yeah, but I'm not seeing a video card expansion, but of course we have the video card built on board, which we can obviously use to test the system. So yeah, I mean, it seems that the screws on this side were removed, so let's take that out and see what is inside this computer. Okay, so inside the actual system itself, we have a motherboard. I think ASUS as well is there. Here we are. Yep. So that's a good indication of what it is, but the actual motherboard is an ASUS M2A-VM is the actual motherboard model. So, I mean, we have AMD written right on the fan. So, I mean, it seems like on the front of the system, we have a good indication of what's in this in terms of a processor. So we have what looks like to be DDR memory installed here. And we do have a hard drive. Actually, look at that. We do have a hard drive. It is connected. The floppy drive, though, has been removed, oddly enough. So this particular motherboard, we have, it looks like the 4-pin power as well that's required. So we're going to make sure we plug that in. We have an AGP slot. We only have 2 PCI slots. So this is a baby board, micro baby ATX board. Not a lot of expansion on this. But again, with the amount that we saw on the system with the I/O shield, I mean, you know, how much more do you want to put in this, depending on what it is? And then we have a couple of PCI slots again. So the nice thing about this is that nobody toyed with the front panel I/O on me. We do have SATA connectivity here, which is pretty cool. We also have, again, I'm only guessing here, but I would imagine this would be for a front panel USB expansion there as well. So again, definitely a lot of opportunity for this board. And then we have this lovely PC speaker beeper, which I just love these. Actually, I just ordered one because of when we were testing those boards out before. That would have came in really handy if I had seen it in this case. So I think it's fair to take this and see if it works. I mean, we have the majority of the parts here that we need that's coming. Again, this was thrown into e-waste, a pile of metal. And yeah, so hopefully we can get this system working. It'd be nice to get at least one of them working. I realize system number 2 doesn't count, but I would like to see something at least post on this video, and we'll see if we can do that for everybody right now. So let's go ahead and get this bench all set up for us to try to test this system out. Okay, so we have the bench all set up to do some testing. I had to get a different power supply because the ones I have in here are all 20 pin, and this board's 24 pin. So I have that. Plus it also requires the 4 pin. I had mentioned that earlier. However, I did not have a power supply to suit that. So I have that now. And so I was able to get that. And I like how this one has a switch on the outside, so I'm not plugging and unplugging it, which is great. Let's go and plug this into the board. And this is the 24 pin header here, ATX header. So we have that installed. And let's get our 4 pin connected. Let's get that in there a little bit closer. And I believe that that's the right way there. There we are. We have that. So we have our power supply connected there. I'm not putting any other load in there. I mean, we have a hard drive in there and all that good stuff. But yeah, we're just going to do a test. Let's flip the switch on. We have a green light on the motherboard. That's a great sign. And I didn't touch any of these, so my feeling is everything's connected fine, but let's hit the power button on the front and see if we can get this going. Nothing. Dead. Well, let's see. Is there an issue with the power supply, I wonder? Or, I mean, we have a green light on the board. And I'm not seeing anything that could potentially be grounding. I'm just going to remove that floppy drive as we did earlier. Actually, I say that, but there's a screw clearly missing from the board. I'm just going to get that connected here. Let's try it again. Nothing. Now, it could be an issue with the switch for the case. Let me just pop that off. I believe that's power switch. It is power switch. I'm going to use our trusted true method. 2 little jump wires here just to see if that's will work. And there we are. Nothing. This board does not want to start up. Well, let's just double check to make sure the power supply is okay. I mean, my understanding is that it is, but I mean, we can just do a quick test of it. Let's see. Let's get that connector out of there. And our 4-pin. I believe that 4-pin is a 12 volt. This is right on there. Yeah, 12 volt ATX. Let's get our trusted tester out. Plug this in. Oh, there we are. And we will get our other one, our 4-pin connector there. I just want to make sure I put in the right part. There we are. And let's turn on the power supply. So I don't know if you see that there, but we have our rails all looking good. So our 12 volt, our minus 12 volt, our plus 12 volt, which we just connected. Our 5 volt is looking good. Both our plus and our plus 12 volt is looking good. Number one, and then our 3.3 volt is looking good as well. So I don't think that there's any issues with this power supply. So we have another case of mystery here. We have a motherboard that is powering up in terms of the light that comes on the board, but it's not giving us any power. And again, I'm trying to keep the scope of this video to just exploring these E-Way systems. And you know what? We've been really lucky with some of the other systems that we've been getting on the channel here, where we've been firing them up and they've required little intervention to at least test them before we restore them. And I'm very interested to see what the issue is with this particular board, and it's going to require a little more testing. And of course, that's for a future video. So let's get the bench all cleaned up and go over these systems in a final review. And here we are again, all done with our 3. We're back at the beginning again. We have our 3 systems that were pulled from e-waste, and it seems that they kind of are e-waste. And we're not going to know everything exactly until we actually get into each system in terms of trying to figure out what is wrong with them. I mean, there's some promise with the systems. I mean, this is a great looking ASUS motherboard that, I mean, we have our AMD 700 socket A processor in this particular system. And my feeling is that there's a grounding problem of some sort on this side. We have a working power supply. We know we tried that in the previous video, tried it on this system, and it's not, unfortunately not working. This system here, or this enclosure, I should say, this case, really interests me. I'm really excited to bring something to you guys that we can build out in this particular system. It doesn't have to be an AMD based system. It can be an Intel based system, but you know, drop a comment down below and let me know, based on all the different motherboards that we've explored in our last video, and I'll post that in the credits here, is, you know, what system would you like to see built in this desktop form factor Silverstone case? I just love it. The brushed metal, the quality of the case, the extra cooling. Yes, it requires a bunch of cleaning, but we can do that and get the system up and running. But I'd be really curious to hear what you'd like to see built in this particular case, because I will definitely get on that. And we have number 3, again, a failure. I wish I would have ended this video on at least something posting. And, we tested the power supply with the power supply tester. We know that the voltages all look good, and we just weren't able to get the system up and running. And I'm wondering if it's also a grounding problem. So, I mean, that requires a little more in-depth than what we were scoped to do in this video, but that would require us taking apart this system, taking the board out and putting it in a test bench configuration and seeing what we can do to get it up and running, which I'm very happy to do, but not at this stage. We'll do that in a future video. So again, I mean, you can't win them all. And I know that our last 2 e-waste videos, we did get a lot of systems working. And, I think the solid win from this, even if we don't have the systems working, that if we can't get the motherboards operational, then we have some really good parts from this build, or from this e-waste haul. So that said, if you liked today's video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. Hit the notification button. You'll be notified when there's new content available. And of course, thank you so much for all my subscribers and for spending the time with me today. We will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.